now that you've gotten your sewing machine home, you've just bought it, you don't know much about it, you got a good deal on it, hopefully, or maybe you didn't, maybe you paid more, it doesn't matter. What does matter is I want to show you, just as I did with the video I just made on how to decide what to pay and how to assess or kick the tires, if you will, for an heirloom quality vintage sewing machine. And I showed you the old 99K from 1927, why I bought it, how much I paid for it, and about how much effort I think it's going to take to restore, but I'm willing to do it because it's heirloom quality. And I have a pretty good hunch or instinct that that old 99 is going to be a wonderful sewing machine. It's not broken, and I cannot let something that is really not broken, but has just been under-maintained and is waiting for an overhaul to work again. I can't stand the idea of something like that going to waste. It's just a shame. But I also mentioned to you in that video that I was going to make one for this other category. Now, I recently posted videos where I was talking about the difference between an heirloom quality vintage machine and a hybrid quality vintage machine. And I did this because it has been so many decades ago since companies started to gradually cheapen their product, and they slowly started introducing plastic into the making of sewing machines. It's not like they just recently started doing this. Those plastic machines you see brand new, the ones I call largely junk, that you can buy today, they didn't start out that way. It was a very slow and gradual slide toward those machines, and it begins, as I mentioned in one of the other videos, somewhere in the mid-1960s, early to mid-60s, and it goes from bad to worse as we get to the current machines today. So, what are you looking at? You guys will remember that I was comparing two of those hybrid machines. I had the Eaton private label machine, that beige free arm, which was really a Brother posing as an Eaton, made by the Brother company. And then the other machine was this one. It was the Janome. Now, both of those machines I have not touched. I have not lifted a finger yet to even do anything to them. I bought the Janome and the Eaton. I was not with the Eaton. It could go either way. I knew it was possible it might have a few plastic parts in it, but with the Janome, in part just when I picked it up, and this is just based on a rough guess, but I had a pretty good inkling that this was not going to be heirloom quality. Now you might think, well, why the heck did you buy it? I did that on purpose because I wanted to make videos, because I don't buy those machines typically. But many of you will have a hybrid vintage sewing machine, either because you bought it and didn't know it was all metal, or maybe you bought it and then you saw videos like mine and others that tell you to get vintage machines with all metal, or it might have been given to you, or maybe you didn't pay anything for it and you figured, what the heck, and it looked old, because it is old. The Janome is just over 40 years old or so, it's technically a vintage machine. So let's open it up. Right now, again, the case, it came in this little case. I drove out in the countryside. Some lady had it. It's still got dust on the top here. I haven't even done any cleaning or anything. I did take it out of this, obviously, because I had to show it to you all when I made that other video. But the case is still a little dusty. And this is how I got it, guys. When I brought it home that day, went out in the county and found it somewhere. I go on these little expeditions where I go looking for machines. I can't help myself. Anyway, so the Janome you guys saw when I had it up in front of the camera, when I opened it up, I got it home and it looked just like this. I had a little box and it's got bobbins, a couple of feet, sewing foot, or this is fairly common stuff that you would see. It even has the remnants of a little dial. This is a little plastic dial. I should have showed you this in the last video. So check out this dial. This was connected to a piece of to a metal screw, and it was designed to go into the bed of the machine and hold down a seam guide. Well, you can see years back they used steel set screws, and now when you take a piece of metal and you put the plastic on it over the years, it fails. And that's an example of planned obsolescence. And I know you guys have seen that many times. Oh, what else? What do we got here? Oh, we have a low shank button foot. That's nice. At least they were still making the feet out of metal. A sewing foot, or a double cording foot, whatever you choose to call it, and a rolled hammer foot, and some nice vintage bobbins. There we go. Okay, no idea what that is. Okay, so we have the little accessories box, and a little clue for you guys. In those days, Janome was not just making machines with their name. They were doing a lot of private labeling, and so they didn't even bother to put the brand on the box. It just says accessories sewing machine. This way they could use a generic box for all the brands that they were making machines for. Okay. And I also was pleased to find, of course, the foot pedal. This is, I can tell by the sound and the feel, this is a rheostat. So if you saw my video on vintage sewing machine foot pedals, this is a rheostat. And it has, the feet are in good shape on the back here. And it's just got a little information here on the back. And it has a cord. Now, this is where I want to kind of talk to you guys about, let's say you're at a thrift store, or somebody has this machine online. It's on Craigslist, it's on Kijiji, it's on, it's a place where you can go and physically see it, okay? This is a really, this is something I wanted to share with all of you because I've done this, and a lot of times I do things and I don't have to think about them. I can go and look at a machine and tell very quickly if it's heirloom or if it's one of these hybrids. But many of you may not. Many of you are just starting out. You haven't seen this. So this is a basic checklist for all of you guys. I want to show you a really fast way to kind of make decisions about, should you buy the machine? Do you want to? How much would you pay? And how much time would you invest to overhaul and restore it? Or how much would you pay someone to do so? Now, remember the video I made on heirloom versus hybrid, and I showed you guys the insides. And we'll take another look at this again, but I'm going to show you what I do to do a quick inspection to make a quick decision. You don't always have hours and days to decide these things. So, first thing you want to do, okay, make sure it has a foot pedal. Sometimes you get a machine and you take it home, it's like, hey, where's the, oh, it didn't come with one and you didn't know. So that's an easy thing to check, okay? Now, take your fingers and go along. If you hold the cord in your hand, I need to let go of it so I can show you what I'm talking about. You take the cord in your hand and just run your fingers along it. See if it's flexible and pliable. But even if it is, even if it's not dry rotted, because if it's dry rotted, you're going to have to replace it, okay? You don't use dry rotted electrical cords. You're going to need to replace that. It can be done, but keep that in mind. Just make a mental note of that. Okay, so even if it's pliable, this one is nice. It's not stiff or dry rotted. Take your fingers and go all the way down the length of it and feel for any nicks or cuts. You know, who knows? People sometimes run over their cords. You never know what people do. Okay, come to the end, and the plug looks fine. I don't see any issues with the plug. Now, the foot pedal, if you get a chance to, you want to test it. Now, I'm going to take this in my hand and I'm shaking it. I don't hear a rattling. That's good. That doesn't mean it's going to function properly. It could still be damaged, but at least, you know, the porcelain inside is not broken. That's nice, because if it is, it's going to be useless and you're going to have to get another one. You can, but again, you want to factor in the cost of replacing the foot pedal. Not huge, but just keep these things in mind. Okay, and you can always use the old cord if it's in good shape, along with the old plug. And of course, this is a 3-pronged plug that Janome was using by the, I think I said this was like late 70s. Okay, so we've covered the foot pedal. If you have the opportunity to try the machine out, and you might not, you can certainly try the foot pedal, see if it's working. Is it consistent? Make sure that when you plug this in, if you're testing it, that is, make sure the machine doesn't start running on its own as if it were possessed. because if it does, your foot pedal is not going to be functioning properly. That is particularly true. While it applies to all foot pedals, it is especially true of electronic foot pedals. And I'm surprised this one didn't come with one. Just a few years later, Janome and all the others were using electronic. And those pedals can have slightly shorter lifespans than these old, rheostat style. Okay, so we've got a cord. We have a plug. The plug, you can plug it into the machine and make sure that it plugs in okay. Make sure that there are no cracks or breaks in your plug. If it has screws and nuts, make sure they're there. If not, you want to make sure you can find a replacement. You probably could for something that simple. Okay, now I'm going to stand up to do this. I'm going to lift the Janome, which it's a hybrid, but it's still pretty darn heavy compared to the new stuff that you see. Nothing else in the case here. Now, I'm going to set the Janome here so you guys can see what I'm describing. Sorry about the little earthquake. I may have bumped into my own camera there. I've been known to do that. We'll just call that part of my style and go with that. Okay. You are looking at the side cover of this Janome. The side cover is plastic, but never mind. I don't care. No big deal. I still have a clutch knob, and it is still made of steel. That's nice. So, you don't want to have the plug into the outlet. We don't want electricity, right? So this plug is not plugged in on the side that's going into power. There's no power here. I just want to see if this goes in. Now, if you look, you'll see that there's a shape to the plug, and there's a shape to the other end, and that tells you it only goes in one way. So you never want to force it the other way. The machine will be unhappy, and so will you. So I'm going to plug it in. Fits good. I don't seem to have any problems there. Okay. So far, so good. And by the way, guys, I have yet to power this machine up. I haven't actually run this. I basically took it out of its box, drug it in front of the camera the other day so you could see it next to the Eaton. So you are learning the future of this machine as I do, because I have not decided what I'm going to do with it yet. Now, if you get an opportunity to run this machine, right? If it's not frozen, if it's frozen, you have to stop. Okay, and obviously, if you recall what I mentioned about knobs and dials, if the machine hasn't been gone through, don't force these knobs because you'll break them. But just see, if you plug it in, you can see if the motor runs. And let's see, I'm going to lift up my pressure bar here. Now, it feels a little stiff, but again, it could be that the motor needs lubrication. First thing to do, put your hand on the hand wheel, and you're gonna be. Let's turn it around. Okay, let's get over here where you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to put my hand on the hand wheel. I'm going to pull it toward me because with most machines, that's the direction of the hand wheel. I've got the pressure foot up. I don't want it dragging on my feed dogs. That's not necessary. And let's turn it. Okay. What's the first thing you see? You see the needle going up and down. That's good. That means we have good movement in our vertical direction. Now let's see what we've got here. I want to see, okay. Now I very carefully and cautiously turn, this is my stitch length knob, and it turns rather smoothly. If you get any resistance at all, remember you're doing this, you're checking things, you're being very efficient. You don't have hours to do this, but it's just kind of like a quick check, but be very careful. If this knob did not move, I would stop right there. It's not broken, but it needs gentle persuasion to work again. If you're too rough on it, you'll harm it. But so far, I'm not harming it at all. It's fine. I can tell the feed dogs are adjusting to that length. Okay, so far so good. Now, this knob, I have not looked at the manual yet, and I haven't used this specific machine. I have operated and I have restored other Genomes, but different models have different functions. So this knob, it went click, it moved, it worked. Great. If it had given me resistance, I would just stop. I have to see, do I push in, do I pull out? In this case, no, I just turn. Anytime a machine does not want to cooperate with you, it is speaking to you. You want to listen. You will save yourself and the machine a world of hurt if you're not fast and you're not impulsive. But again, I know that you're not sitting here for hours with somebody you don't know who is trying to sell you this machine. This is your stitch tension dial adjustment, and it seems to be moving okay. These can represent issues, but they're not as common as other problems that I've seen. What am I doing? Why am I doing that? I'm looking to see if my check spring is there. And it could be that the check spring is actually recessed. Over time, they started doing different things with the check spring. So I don't know for sure if it has one. I may be able to get one at a sewing back center. That's not an immediate concern for me. Up here, I just unlocked the pressure spring for the presser bar. That's what applies pressure, allows your foot to put pressure on the fabric so it doesn't go sliding around all over the place. Now let's see, I can adjust it. Okay, the spring's good. So far so good. Now a quick look, I have two spool pins in the back, one of them slightly bent, but it's okay. It's not going to interfere with my machine. I've got thread guide 1, thread guide 2, it's going to come down, and you're just kind of imagining, okay, how does this thing work? How does it guide? There's your take-up bar, there's another thread guide, and of course, these machines, by this period, they're going to thread front to back. Now, this should go in here and go straight down to the needle. I'm not seeing a place where there might be a missing thread guide. A lot of times if it broke, you would feel the remnant of that thread guide. Okay, again, I'm making these decisions very quickly. All right, I'm going to flip down. Be careful, because by the late 70s, this door is plastic. But thankfully, this section in here is not. Okay, we've got a class 15 bobbin case. And there's still thread on the bobbin. Okay, now, I want to, if I can't test the sewing, here's a very quick way to look at your bobbin case. It could have problems, but this is the lever, of course, that your bobbin case is going to use. You can hold this out to install the bobbin case, and that keeps the bobbin from flopping out on the floor. But I want you to do this. Whether you're right or left-handed, you can adjust. I'm right-handed. So watch this. I've got the bobbin case, never seen it before, but I know what it is, class 15. Now, take your finger on this little, on the little lever of the spring. Just pull gently back and see if it snaps back. And I'll put it up, see if you guys can hear it. Yeah, it's snapping back. And I haven't put a tiny amount of oil in there to help it. That tells me that's probably in pretty good shape. I'm not expecting issues with this. Again, this isn't foolproof, guys. You could get one that's bad, but you can get replacements for these. Okay, so far I have not seen anything that looks, like it's going to be a dramatic issue. Okay, what is there to look at on the side of the machine? Let's take a look. Side door. If the bulb, I haven't plugged it in. If the bulb is out, I can get replacements for the bulbs. I rarely, nothing is impossible, but I rarely have issues with light bulb socket wiring. That usually will happen in much older machines. And so far, I think I've got there's actually the little switches back on the back side. And again, if the bulb is burned out, I can replace it. I personally like to have extra LED lighting anyway, because most vintage machines have these little tiny, weeny little 10-watt bulbs, and they're okay, but they're nothing to get excited about. Now, I'm looking in here on the side. Let's zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. Okay, so I'm looking in here on the side. I see movement. That's great. Now, it's not moving like a well-oiled machine. It's been sitting. I can tell that. But it's not fighting me. So far, so good on there. That needs to be oiled, I can tell. Now, haven't looked at the motor yet. Let's see, the bobbin winder up top. I haven't tested that yet. This bobbin winder. I have not tested the bobbin winder yet. By the 70s, of course, they've moved the bobbin winder from the front over here, and they moved it to the top. I guess they thought they were being clever, or they made the design look different. I personally love bobbin winders on the front. I like being able to see it, put the bobbin there, but these work fine. They all work fine. I think Singer in the 500 series was already doing this in 1958, 59. Okay, now, if you are buying this machine in a store, or you're going to get the machine from your neighbor or somebody off of a classified online, you probably are not going to have a chance to do a detailed inspection. Okay, so you may not have a screwdriver with you, or you may not have the right type. Now, I could take this off and say, hey guys, let's inspect the belt, but that's really more of a procedural video. I want to keep this as real world as possible, because you're going to have just a certain amount of time to make a decision. Well, it looks nice. It's not too dirty, a little bit. There's I don't see anything dramatically odd or strange about it. This is not broken, but there's one part of the machine you really need to look at. If it needs a new belt, this machine, up through this era, you can still get belts. They're really cheap. I don't know, they're $7 or $8. So I really think when you get a hybrid machine, unlike some of the heirloom quality machines where you can open the top and look in, I don't have the time to do that normally, and I don't, because I'm generally not going to have a problem generally with the all metal, all steel machines. But this is why I want to emphasize this section. I just moved the camera for you all. Now you're getting a bird's eye view of the top. I've loosened the screw here, and I'm going to remove the top. Now, if you saw the video when I was talking about these hybrid machines, you will remember this view. This is very surprising to people when they buy an old machine. It's vintage, they know it's old, and they pick it up. It's certainly a lot heavier than the new plastic junk that you can buy in the stores now. So they think they have an heirloom quality machine, but this is the reason, as I mentioned in the earlier video, that this is a hybrid quality machine. Okay. Now, unlike that 8 machine, the cam arm, which is, I believe, what this is called. It's sort of a Y-shaped bracket that the cam rolls around in. Okay. Now, as I'm turning this, guys, look, you can see here's the belt. The belt, as far as I can tell, now I have to inspect it more closely. It would help if I put the camera there for you. My instincts, remember, let's pretend we're doing this fast. We just have, 15, 20 minutes. We're trying to check all this stuff. Right now, the belt is fine, but because of the kind of belt it is, I know I can get a belt for this. We're looking at $7, $8. So that I'm not worried. And this one looks fine, but if you got to replace it, don't sweat that. You're okay. This is what I really want you to see and inspect closely. If the lighting is not good, you can take a flashlight. I've got some really good natural light here. So I'm going to zoom in, and I want you to see this. Remember from the last video, this portion, this drive shaft, is wonderful, beautiful steel. But you can see they had already started to use plastic for this gear and for the little cam sets that are used to adjust the machine. So, and that is done for different stitch types. But for the moment, I'm going to put my hand, this is that front, this middle dial, and I'm going to turn. And you see me turning, okay? Be gentle, and if it will turn for you, that's good. I want you to take it, and I want you, if you have good light, fine. If not, get yourself a flashlight, and let's zoom in here. Come on. I want my camera to really pick this up for you. There we go. Okay, now what you're going to do is simply turn it and look for cracks, okay? If it's not the right color, if it's not perfectly clean, don't worry about that. You can fix that. But look at it. Watch as I'm turning. I don't see any cracks. Now, if you get any resistance at all, you don't want to force it. But this one's core, and now I'm at the, I'm at the end, right? So if you look, you will see, if I can hold this still for you, this is where it stopped, right? And so if I turn clockwise, I can turn about 180 degrees and I have all these options. So the dial moves about 180 degrees. And you saw me turn through that. Now I'm going to go put my hand and I'm going to turn back. Okay. And you're seeing this little arm, this linkage moving against it. Okay. And that changes the position of the needle. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So far so good. For 180 degrees, I don't see any cracks. That's a good sign. Now, this cam here, this cam turns 360 degrees with the movement of the hand wheel. So I'm going, let's pan out just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I want you to see what you will be doing. Okay, so I've got my hand on the hand wheel over here. You can see my fingers way over on the right. Okay, so I'm going to turn the hand wheel toward me and just turn it. You don't have to zoom around. You can't anyway. You're doing it by hand. Pay very close attention to these cams and to this gear. Okay? And what you want to do is look for cracks. Generally, if these gears discolor, it's usually all over. It's consistent. And look very carefully, and you may need a flashlight for this gear, but look at it and see if you see any cracking. It'll often look like cracks in ice. You've seen cracked plastic before. You probably have some idea. Now, I'm going around, and I'm just going to keep going. Again, this machine is not frozen, thankfully. And I don't see any cracks here. So, what does this tell you? This tells, what it tells me so far, so good. Now, let's say you have this machine in front of you and someone says to you, hey, this is a great machine, it's strong, it's not like the new ones, I think it's worth $100. Now, they might think it's worth $100. I personally do not. That doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it, okay? But you have to be extra careful when you're inspecting a machine that is from the hybrid period of the vintage era. Oh, that's a mouthful. That's different than the prior video where I showed you the old 99. Yes, you've got to inspect an heirloom quality machine, absolutely. But those machines are going to be, they're going to have fewer things that are going to make them basically salvage, right? It's really hard to ruin an heirloom quality machine. Now, it might be in rough shape. That old 99K, I'm probably going to spend quite a few hours with it, but I believe I can make it sing again, and I may decide, hey, I didn't pay much I paid $20 for that and the case, okay? So this machine, let me see, where did I get this? I gave, for the machine and the little box of stuff and, the whole carrying case, I paid $10 for this machine. That is what I thought it was worth. I don't know if they were asking 25 or something. They weren't asking a lot. So why did I only give them 10? Because I didn't have a chance to do all of this inspecting, and I knew I was going to buy this for the video. If this was cracked, I would show you what to look for and what it looked like. This one's not. So you might have a machine just like this. Okay, guys. So at the end of the day, what I've shown you is a very rough, quick and inexact way to look at a machine and try to ascertain if its insides have plastic. If they do, if they're broken. Now, let's say you are asking me, well, what's the justification? Why don't I just keep looking for an heirloom quality machine? Because you've been hearing me go on about it since 2015 on my channel. And that's great. So let's talk about some scenarios where you might actually end up with one of these machines. Very often, you might pick this up and you bought it and you didn't know that it wasn't all metal because it looked old, and you heard that, wow, all these old machines are, solid, they're all metal. But again, over time, they started to change them. So you might have bought this machine and not realized it. Or maybe somebody says, hey, I'll give it to you, right? Or it's $10 and it's strong, right? It's a free arm. One of the things that you may notice about that old Kenmore that I talk about a lot is that it's a free arm. Free arm machines were very slow to catch on in North America. They actually became more popular in Europe first. So when you look at many of the heirloom quality all metal machines from that wonderful era, basically from the beginning all the way up into the 60s, most of them in North America are flatbeds, and they're great. Our ancestors sewed everything on flatbed sewing machines, so we know that it can be done. But some of you may find a free arm a very useful convenience to have when you're sewing sleeves, or when, I'm going to be doing a repair on a shirt and I'm going to use a free arm machine to do that. I don't have to, but it would just make the job quicker and easier for me. So maybe that's your reason. Hey, I want at least one free arm along with all my other flatbeds. And then another reason is, what if this machine was in your family? What if you didn't buy it? What if it was given to you by your mom or your dad or a grandparent? In that case, you now have a different reason for wanting to extend the life of the machine, to take care of it. It could be that maybe it wasn't given to you, but you learned to sew on a machine like this. For years, I have overlooked and passed by these machines because there are so many heirloom quality machines waiting to be saved. But I over time, I started thinking that a number of you folks may have these. You may already have one of these. Heck, you may have gotten it new. Or for whatever reason, you found one of these and you thought, well, that would be a cool machine to have. And so I realized that, just as my grandparents taught me, waste not, want not. If you have a machine that's not broken, okay, you don't have the plastic gears broken, and it doesn't take moving heaven and earth to get it restored and overhauled, then there is a good reason to hold on to this, right? If anything is not broken, we should extend the life as long as we can. I have no idea how long this machine will run. Do I think it will run many generations into the future? I'm not so sure about that, but who knows? I don't put this in the same league as heirloom quality, but compared to a new plastic machine, if you were to go to any of the stores, even the sewing dealers, and get one of their new machines, they're not made as well as this one, because at least this one has a lot of steel components in it. So again, this is one of those in-between areas. This is not a new, modern, crappy machine, but it's not an heirloom, ancient, vintage machine, the ones that I go on and on about, the ones that helped me fall in love with this hobby in the first place. So what I'm going to do is suggest this to you. Go through the video that I've shown you, take a look at the one I did on the 99K, and compare the two, and decide, maybe you'd like to have one of each. You never know. But with these machines, if the gears are not broken, because I'm not aware, I haven't done a search to see if you can get a gear for this. This machine is laid out much more simply than the Bernina was, the one that I replaced gears in and swore I would never want to face that again, even though it was successful. You really want to look at this and say, well, how do I know? How do I know what to decide? If it's not personally sentimental to you, if it doesn't have an emotional tie to someone in your family or to your own early sewing experience, if you have one of these, if the gears are not broken, if the motor is not burned out, if the motor runs, then consider taking the machine and taking it through a restoration process. And I call this a light restoration. And that doesn't mean you do it, poorly or haphazardly. I'm going to do a video. You all have asked me to do videos on, could you take us through the process of going through an entire machine, okay? And I'm going to do that. I'm going to find one, and I'm going to do a heirloom vintage machine, Okay, we're going to go through that process and I'll show you how it works. You've already heard me justify why it's okay to spend hours or even pay someone to do it, because those machines, they're just incredible. But then I'm going to do a video on how to overhaul a hybrid machine. Now this video tells you how to justify it, right? How to decide. If this gear in here was cracked, what would I do with this machine? I wouldn't throw it in the garbage, absolutely never. I would take the machine and I would offer it for parts to a sewing vacuum center. Or in my case, since I overhaul machines, I might actually just keep it for my own parts inventory because I have a bunch of old parts. But if you have one of these and you found out, oh shoot, I don't want to invest the time or money because the gear's cracked and it's not salvageable to use, but these parts are very precious because other machines like this, maybe they're just waiting for one missing part, right? And if you don't want to be in the salvage business, that's okay. But please don't throw it in the garbage. Find someone, you can offer it, you can give it away, you can offer it for sale online, or find a sewing and vacuum dealer who might want the old parts. You will find someone. Waste not, want not, guys. You know that old cliche, and it sure is true. So stay tuned for future videos on the overhaul series. And I'm going to do one on a hybrid machine because now we know that this, so far, unless I discover something else along the way, so far this machine is a pretty good candidate for that. And then after that, I will explain to you what I'm going to do with this machine because I don't overhaul machines unless I really believe they have a future life. I don't want to invest the time or the effort. This one does, but I'm going to have, in the overhauling of this machine, you're going to see me approach it differently than I do the heirloom quality machines. This is something I recently decided to do. I was very reticent about it, but then I realized this machine is 40-something years old. It might last another 5, 10, who knows, if it's cared for. It's not heirloom quality, but it just seems awful to take something that is still useful and to waste it. I can't stand the waste. My grandparents, if they taught us anything, it was how to take care of things, how to buy quality, and how to help things last. So I hope all of you appreciate if you have a hybrid machine. Don't feel bad. If your machine is not heirloom quality, we're going to come up with a way to extend the life of your hybrid vintage machine in a way that is respectful to all the resources that went into making it, because a lot of energy and raw materials went into making these, just like was the case with the heirloom quality versions. Thank you all for being patient and listening to me ramble, but I really wanted to make a video for these machines because they're kind of the ignored machines sometimes, particularly by people like me. And so I'm trying to come around and find a way where you pay very little for these and you don't invest 25, 30 hours on them unless it was your personal inherited machine or something like that. But stay tuned, guys. We're going to go into the future and seeing what we can save in the hybrid world along with the heirloom category of machines. See you next time.